This is a really fun story, and I'm going to share a pretty simple recipe for something really delicious with you. About, I don't know, 12 years or so ago, Cyndi Lauper, the diva, Cyndi Lauper, believe me, she's a diva, famously sang the singer of Girls Just Want to Have Fun and True Colors, was in Nashville recording a new project, and her record label hired me to be her driver while she was in Nashville. So the first day I picked her up at the Vanderbilt Plaza Hotel and took her to the recording studio. She was vocalizing in the car. Well, every time I picked her up, she was vocalizing in the car. She had this little kind of xylophone type musical instrument that she would play and vocalize. And so she was, every second, she was trying to be an even better singer than she always was. She actually took yodeling lessons while she was in Nashville. But anyway, in the first trip from the hotel to the recording studio, I overheard her say to her entourage that I think there were four of them, that she would really wish she could stay in a hotel that had windows then open and bathtubs. So I dropped them off at the recording studio, and I was just sitting in my car in the parking lot of the recording studio on Belmont Boulevard. And I just started calling hotels in Nashville and asking them if they had rooms with windows that open and bathtubs. And it turns out the nicest hotel in Nashville, the Hermitage Hotel downtown, which is just incredibly beautiful place. Some of the rooms have bathtubs, and all the rooms, the windows open. And they had four vacancies. And it was $100 less per night than the Vanderbilt Plaza. So when Ms. Lauper came out to get in the car, I said, "So how would you like to move to a different hotel that's a nicer hotel that has windows that open and bathtubs and costs $100 less a night?" So obviously she was thrilled, and that changed our relationship. And I ended up having dinner with him every night and having lunch with her hairstylist every day. And they from the point of the story is she asked me to, somehow it came up that I did some catering, and she asked me to prepare the celebratory dinner at the end of the recording session um, in the recording studio, which had a little tiny studio apartment type kitchen. So I was obviously thrilled. And I was in the kitchen doing the mise en place and prep to get ready to serve this dinner for probably 12, 15 people. And one of the dishes I was going to make was wild mushroom risotto. Risotto is one of my go-to dishes. I've made it a million times, and I almost always make wild mushroom risotto. And she came in the kitchen and she saw the arborio rice. She said, "Oh, are you making risotto?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Oh gosh, butternut squash risotto is my favorite thing in the world. I sure hope you're making that." I said, "Of course I am." I wasn't, but I was. Not only was I not making butternut squash risotto, I had never cooked butternut squash at that point in my life for anybody, for any purpose, in any fashion. But anyway, I dashed off to the grocery store, got myself some butternut squash. I went online and found out how you cook butternut squash, and I made butternut squash risotto. And when she tasted it, she asked me if I was married. Unfortunately, and I wasn't, but she was. So it never did go anywhere, and she was just kidding. But she really, really loved my butternut squash risotto. So here's my recipe for butternut squash risotto. It's pretty simple. Um, First thing you have to do is roast the butternut squash. So you peel the butternut squash, you seed the butternut squash, you cut it up into like 3/4 inch cubes, toss it in olive oil, salt and pepper, spread it out on a sheet pan. So it's one layer. Put it in the oven, leave it in the oven for about 10 minutes, take it out, turn it over, and then leave it in the oven again until it's starting to be tender. You don't want it to be really soft because then you're going to put it in the risotto and it'll become mush. So when it's kind of like with pasta al dente, it's done. You take it out. Then you make the risotto like you always make risotto. So you have one pan with a quart of chicken stock in it, or if you prefer vegetable stock. And then you have a much larger pan, like a a Dutch oven. I use a Le Creuset Dutch oven. I have an insatiable appetite for purchasing Le Creuset things, which is the reason I don't have any money. And so first you put some olive oil and butter in the Dutch oven, and when it's melted and hot, when the butter stops bubbling, um, add one diced yellow onion. I usually use Vidalia onions. They seem to be always available now. They used to be hard to find, but now you can pretty much find Vidalia onions any time of the year at the grocery store. Dice Vidalia onion, add the Vidalia onion to the butter and olive oil, and caramelize it. So you want it to get kind of caramel color, not quite caramel color, but you want it to get a little bit browned and a little toasty tasty. When the onions are done and caramelized, add a cup and 3/4 of arborio rice to the pan. And what you're doing is toasting the rice. You don't, at that point, you don't want any liquid other than that little bit of butter and olive oil in the Dutch oven. So just stir the rice in the bottom of the Dutch oven for about 2 minutes until it kind of, you can smell that it's starting to toast. When that's done, um, add half a cup of good white wine. Don't use what they sell in the grocery store as cooking wine. Don't use terrible white wine. Use something that you would enjoy drinking because you're going to end up eating it. Add about a half a cup of white wine, and let that cook, and stir the rice in the white wine until the white wine pretty much evaporates. Then at that point, you start adding a ladle at a time of you've warmed the chicken stock or vegetable stock. You don't want it to be boiling, but you want it to be almost boiling. And one ladle at a time, you add it to the rice and stir it. And you pretty much have to stir it constantly for about 20 minutes for the risotto to turn out the way you want it to turn out. Um, so when that ladle full of stock has evaporated, you add another ladle and you keep stirring. And when that ladle of stock is evaporated, you add another ladle of stock. When you've got about 2 ladles of stock left, you can add salt and pepper to taste. You know, different people like different amounts of salt and pepper, but that's when you want to add salt and pepper is when there's about 2 ladles of stock left. And, I usually just use enough salt to cover the palm of my hand and 5 or 6, I like pepper, so 5 or 6 twists on a pepper mill. And then you're going to take, and this is prep you need to have done. The next time you buy some Parmigiano, Italian Parmigiano, good quality, high quality Parmigiano Reggiano. When you're almost finished with it, don't throw away the rind. Put the rind in a baggie and stick it in the freezer. And the next time you make risotto, take that Parmigiano rind out. And at this point in the recipe, put the Parmigiano rind into the rice stock mixture. And that will melt that last little bit of cheese that's just by the rind, which is intensely flavorful, off the rind and into your risotto. And it is absolutely the key to making great risotto. Also, at that point, add about a tablespoon of fresh chopped thyme that you've chopped finely. And then add those last one at a time, add those 2 ladles of stock. And when the stock has pretty much been, absolved by the rice, the rice should be creamy and delicious. It shouldn't be mushy. The kernels of rice should be separate and it should smell fabulous. And then you add the butternut. I almost forgot. Then you add the butternut squash and stir it, and just enough so you want the butternut squash to be a little toothsome, like al dente, like a pasta. And then you have the rice and the stock and the onions and the white wine and the thyme and the Parmigiano and the butternut squash. And who knows, somebody might ask you to marry them because it's that good. Remove the butternut squash rinds before you serve it. That night, I served beef brisket with the risotto, and that went over very well. Um, so that's my recipe for butternut squash risotto that got me a tongue-in-cheek marriage proposal from the very famous rock star.